Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to episode 375 of the GeoGearHeads, the weekly show for geocaching and other location-based stuff. I think that's how I'm going to do it from now on. It's just stuff.
Highly technical term there.
Yeah. So the voice that you're hearing there is R. Reagan. Welcome back to the show.
Got to do the Chris stuff here.
Yeah. Chris is, we'll call it vacationing. How's that? He's not doing anything that fun. He's got work stuff going on tonight, so he wasn't able to join us.
Poor guy.
So it's just myself. I'm Daryl W4 for anyone who might be joining us for the first time. And if you are, go back and check some of those archives. We got more great shows. This one I'm sure is going to be awesome because it's always great having you back on, our Reagan.
Thank you. Plato Addict begged off. She said her plate was very full with a new job, and you know how that goes.
I do, in fact, and even if it's not a new job, I understand how like it's busy at times, and so does Chris, because that's why he couldn't even make the show himself.
Yeah, I told her you'd be looking for her in a future gig.
Oh, absolutely. We definitely need to get her back on, and I think she's responsible for some of the stuff that we're talking about later on in the show.
T.W. Lair, in fact, was the instigator of that bit I think you're talking about.
Yes. Okay. I thought she was involved with that one too.
She hasn't been on this podcast. She's been on some others.
Okay. But in any case.
Another one, but yeah.
Yeah. In any case, we'll have to get her back on to talk about some other stuff. And we'll probably have to get T.W. Lair on as well.
Yep.
But we are going to be talking tonight about the Cachetur.no assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Which we mentioned a little bit before, but this is going to be a show all about it.
Yeah, let me tell you a bit about it. What we're going to do, Cachetur Assistant is a browser extension. It's a plugin to your browser, and it's available for Chrome and Firefox and Safari, and all your favorite browsers out there. You have to install it like any other browser extension. And in fact, if you're using Project GC, you might have their extension already installed because they have one too. So, once you have it installed, it will do some really cool things. It will let you look at geocaching.com maps and see your trip route laid on top of the map. So you can look and see what caches are close to your route. Same thing for Project GC. And from the map, it lets you add caches directly to your route as you're looking at the geocaching.com map. There's no flipping back and forth. You can just directly manipulate the caches you see and say, I want that one, and I want that one. And we'll do some of that. What I want to do this evening is sort of reprise your show 373, which you did caches along a route using the geocaching.com tools for that, and with pocket queries. And it had some limitations, some things that I found. I don't use it much because it doesn't really work the way I want it to work. And so I'll do the same trip. You did a trip from New York to Washington, D.C. in that show. And we'll build the same trip here tonight using the assistant, show how it could be different and where things would be easier or better in certain ways.
Well, and one thing that I do like about using Cachetur.no is it allows for things that aren't geocaches along your route.
That's right.
So you can put in things like that lunch stop. You can put in if you want to go that deep, actually plan each and every one of your fuel stops along the way, put that all in, and then plan the caches around that.
Right. We've talked in the previous shows about the geocoding tool where you can find a place like a hotel or a restaurant or something, get its coordinates and drop it into your trip as a waypoint. So I won't reprise that tonight, but it's there. And that's the sort of thing you're talking about.
Right. So it's a great tool for when you actually have a trip. It's a great tool all the way around. But when you actually have a trip that you have to go and make, and you're looking for those key caches along the route that makes it worth the extra few minutes that you are going to take when you're going somewhere with a family.
We'll see some of that. And, there's I think what we want to do, I've stripped back my browser. I've taken out all the extension and everything. So we're going to start with bare metal here and show people how to install the Cachetur Assistant. There is a video which you have in the show notes, a link on YouTube. So if you're listening and you want to get home and look at the thing, you can go offline, kind of tune your ears in, but you can't see everything I'm doing, and you can go back and revisit that in the video.
Yeah, and this is going to be a good one for anyone who is interested in what's actually happening to go back and check our video feed on YouTube, which is also in the show notes. So if you head over to CacheManiacs.com, scroll down toward the bottom is going to be that link to the YouTube show, or better yet, subscribe to us on YouTube itself, and you can watch all of the shows and get notified of the new ones.
Yep. I'm going to try hard to paint a picture with words as what we're seeing on the screen for those who are listening in your car or someplace where you don't have benefit of a screen. So the first thing we want to do is actually get the assistant installed, since that's pretty important. The install, let me go to the share. I'm going to go dark here for seeing you.
Right.
And I'll share my application window. It should come up in a sec. Share.
And now I am seeing myself. So we have the window.
Do you?
Yep.
Okay. Are you seeing my window now?
Well, I'm seeing your window of me. So, okay, now we're looking at the Google page with how to enable TamperMonkey and Chrome.
Okay. We made the switch. You're now looking at what I'm doing here on my screen, and I can't see you, which is fine. I don't need to look at your bug here till later. So what I've done is I've just put a Google search in for install TamperMonkey in my browser name. If you like Firefox, you can put Firefox in there. Down here, sort of the first real hit is TamperMonkey Google Chrome. So if I click that, in just a moment, we'll be in the Chrome Web Store. And we have the TamperMonkey extension. Now, TamperMonkey itself is a plugin manager. It's not the Cachetur assistant, but TamperMonkey manages all the extensions you may have installed. So if you've got Project GC installed already with their extension, you probably already have TamperMonkey, in which case this would say remove from Chrome up here instead of add to Chrome. So if you've already got it, you don't need to do this step. We'll get to the next step in a moment. But we haven't done it. We're lacking it. So I'll click Add to Chrome. I get a say, are you really sure you want to do this and what it can do? And I say, yes, please. Runs around, says checking. And in just a moment here, TamperMonkey has been added to Chrome. And we come up. Here we are. TamperMonkey was successfully installed. That's what I wanted to see. So now what we're going to do is we need to go get the Cachetur.no plugin itself. Go to Cachetur.no website. And we look to the Tools menu here. And we go to Scripts and Macros. Select that. Very first one is the Cachetur Assistant. Voila. We click Download. We click the Download button here. TamperMonkey steps in and says, you're about to install the Cachetur Assistant. Do you want to do that? Now he's managing it. So he's, yes, please install it. And it says it's all installed. And you'll notice up here, there's sort of a funny looking icon with a rounded rectangle with two white circles in it. That's the TamperMonkey icon. And if you click on that, you can go to the TamperMonkey dashboard and see what plugins you've got installed. So we only have one. We have the Cachetur Assistant. It's enabled. If we wanted to delete it, we'd go over here and delete it. But we're not going to do that. So here we are. We're done. And that's all there is to it. It's not terribly hard. So we'll close those. And so we're ready to start thinking about making our trip. We've got the assistant installed. So last thing we need to do, though, is go to geocaching.com because there's one little more thing to be done. The assistant integrates with, let's go to view the map. And there's set map preferences down here on the lower left. We click on that. And we see we're currently using Google Maps. For the assistant to work, we need to be using leaflet maps. So switch over, unless you're already there. And that's the final step. Leaflet maps are based off of OpenStreetMaps. So we've set everything up. One of the things you'll notice up here at the top is a little extra thing on the map. It's got the Cache Tour colored icon. It says add caches to a particular trip. I think I have 2 trips lying here. You pick the one you're going to work with, and some icons we'll talk about a little later. So clearly this is another indication that the assistant is installed because it adds this to your page. So the first thing we want to do is a search because we're going to go get the last trip started at Washington Square in New York. And for New York City, so if I go to New York City, the problem with the caches along a route was you couldn't start at a cache. You had to start at a physical location that you had to define. So I'm in New York. I'm going to map that area of the site of where we are in New York. New York, New York. Wait for it to paint. Come on, give me some. We've rather zoomed it all in too much, so let's go back where we can actually see something besides a morass of caches. And we start to notice here, up here, I happen to know where it is, I believe, once the map finishes drawing, is the Washington Square Park virtual. I'm not going to wait for it to finish drawing, but there it is. So I pop the call out up. We can see this is what you normally get, except you get one extra thing here at the bottom, send to Cachetur.no. So I can add this to my trip by simply clicking here, and it's sent. I can add a comment that says start of trip, let's say, for later, so I can remember why I put it there. It's not an obvious reason to do it, but you have other reasons to put comments in there that make a lot of sense to you. Now we need to go back to search. Rather zoom that in, that's too much, but we want to go down and put the other end of our trip in place in Washington, D.C. So we want to go to Washington, D.C., District of Columbia. Once again, map it. If you knew the cache names, you could just type them in over in Cachetur or in the search and go to just load exactly that one cache. The cache we're wanting to end up with here turns out to be one called, come on, oh, don't do, it's still busy zooming it in. We're going to have to, thank you. I really didn't want it zoomed in, but we can unzoom that. Okay. West of the mall here, we have a cache that I'm going to choose as my destination called The Actor Really Did Break a Leg, and it's Ford's Theater, where Lincoln was shot. And that seemed like a good place to go, rather than out onto the mall, because we can probably park in this area anyway. Again, we send it to Cachetur.no. La voila. And we say, end of trip. Okay. Now, we got a start and an end. And those are really the things that you use to bracket your trip, because everything else needs to go in between those. So we'll talk about this little. We said this is the trip it's going in, the GeoGearHeads New York to DC trip. There's an icon to the right with an arrow on it. If I click on that icon, it'll open up a tab and bring up the Cachetur website. And we'll see we have the 2 caches that we've added to the trip so far, both virtuals. Now, because I want all further inserts to go before the last thing, I double-click the Washington one, and I get a little dotted line, which is the insertion point. So as I add new caches via the map, they'll go in before the very last step of my trip. If you don't, you can fix it later if you forget, but it's easier just not to have to worry about it. So we've got a start on our trip. We have an end on our trip. Just for giggles, let's look at the map and see what things look like. Well, there's the way the crow flies. Straight, which means we haven't actually mapped it onto roads yet. You can go here immediately and do a order a new route calculation, which will cause Cachetur to go and use Grasshopper to find the road route that you want for that to go on. And in a minute, we'll see a number up here when it's done running the route computation. But there's plenty of other stuff here worth noting. Our route so far, the crow flies for 204 miles. We've got a summary of the DT ratings and the terrain of our caches in our trip. We've got a list of the counties and states that we are going to visit so far. So lots of statistics you can see here. And as we flesh out the trip, there'll be more to see there. The actual trip sections here have information, so we can bring up details on the cache. This one's quite happy. It's been found a lot. We can see if there's problems with it, will show up there. So you can quickly, without opening the website, get a sense of what's going on with the cache. Come on. It should finish shortly. That's the other one. There it is. So my calculation of the route is complete. And so now if I simply reload the page and go to the map, we'll see a somewhat better representation, come on, of where we're going along the way. This is on roads now. So we can get a sense of it. We can see our two caches here. So now we're ready to start putting things on this route. Now that we know where the route goes, we can see what is close to that route. So let's begin and see what I always do almost at the start of a trip. Let's see if there's any webcams around. A dying breed, but heck, get them when you can. I'll close out a couple of windows. We'll do a search now on GeoCaching.com. Change some filters. Clear all the types except webcam. And we'll set it to search only in the United States because I'm not going to go across the water to find one on this trip. And we will do our search. We have 108 results. If I map those, well, there's where they are all in the United States. But you can see what little tiny purple line here is our trip, and it's rather too zoomed out for us. So we'll talk about this other icon up here to the right with the magnifying glass on. If you click that, it zooms the screen so that your route fits on screen, and everything else that you don't care about is no longer something you look at. So nothing much up near New York. If we go down doing IFR, I follow roads, we find a webcam not too far off our route. Cache along a route would not find that. It's too far away. But I'll go that far off for a webcam. So we'll send it to Cachetur.no. I will say comment webcam, which is sort of a no-brainer because it definitely is a webcam, and I already know that. But I'll put a comment in. And then there's a second one right down near where we're going to end the trip. Again, definitely going to go for that guy, the Scott Circle webcam. So we'll add that to our trip. Okay, we got 2 webcams on our trip. And so what do we want to do next? How about high favorite virtuals? I'm always a sucker for those. So again, we'll go to, let's just close the map for the time being, change the search filters. We want to turn off webcams and turn on virtuals. And in the United States is fine. Let's look for any virtuals with over 100 favorites or more. So I'm not going to look at the wimpy ones. We've only got a day to do this trip, so let's actually make it happen. Map those. In a sec, I'm going to zoom it in again because we're looking at all of the United States. Here's our trip. Let's zoom it in just a bit more. So up here, I'm not going to look inside New York City. We're getting out of the city before we start doing anything. What's that guy? Virtual driving, 288 favorite points. Got to go for that one. Send it there. Add a comment. We're going there because it has 288 faves. Absolutely got to go to that one. Okay. And what's this guy? 6 feet over. Sounds good. 105 favorites, so we'll add him. The advantage of this is you can really cherry pick it when you've got the stuff in front of you, not trying to pick through the 1,000 that cache along a route dumped on you that you're trying to chew through and decide what you want. Okay, that's something that'll keep us busy. On the other hand, let's not just stop at virtuals. How about any favorite, anything, any type with, let's say, 200 favorites, because that's got to be even better. So we'll increase that to 200. We'll change to all the types of caches, and we'll run our search again. Except this time we're going to have a problem, because we're going to find a heck of a lot of caches in the United States, way more than we can map. So what we got to do is narrow it down a bit. And so let's say we're only looking at ones in New Jersey. But with 200, we might get away with it. Let's try it. Let's see if it'll work. Not world, not world. Don't do that. Oh, well. I think I need to go back and change that. I lost my United States filter. Let's put it back on. See if we can winnow the number down to something reasonable. Still, it's going to be a big number. Oh, there we go. We're under 1,000, which I can map. So if we map it, these are high, any type cache in the United States. So we'll zoom it into our route again. And interesting. There's one up here, and right there is one, and that looks familiar. What is that? That's my virtual driving guy. So why have I lost my map? I don't know. Slow bandwidth. So let's see, there's this other icon we haven't talked about yet to the right here, which some people call the treasure hunt icon sometimes. If I click on that, you'll notice some caches appear. Those are the caches that are already in my route. And so I can clear it by the recircle icon, click it again to make them appear. So you can see where the caches you've already added are along your route, which in this case means we're already getting off with this virtual here. Why not get its neighbor? Because we're right there. And it's a high favorite. So we'll take XL and send it to our trip because it's very conveniently located. 238 faves for some reason. People like it. We want to go there, get the experience. So we've got, I think we've explained all the icons up there now. There's the open the Cachetur page, refresh the page, show the trip, and show the caches that are already in the trip. So what do we want next?
Well, just as a quick point of interest, David in the chat says that virtual driving is in a cemetery, and he's gone back multiple times with others just to show them what was there.
It's ultra cool, is it?
Yeah, so I think that's one that's definitely worth checking out. Maybe if you need to plan a trip out there just to get it.
You got to think so, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're not done here. I'm a sucker for challenge caches. Just it's my thing, you got to have something to work on, and having challenges that you have to do, like finding 300 mysteries in a day because I found that stupid thing last week. Now it's on my monkey on my back. So I'm maybe I'll do that at GeoWoodstock when the state map of Texas has about 254, and I only need another 46 to get it up to 300 in one day. Madness. Madness.
That's okay. A lot, though.
Yeah, it is indeed. So we put challenge in the title. We're looking for challenge caches, and we want to find only mystery caches. But we're still going to get way too many, probably. So let's start first searching in New Jersey, because that's sort of, I'm trying to stay out of New York proper. So let's just search within New Jersey for challenge caches. And voila, 99 of them. Good number. So here's our route. Zoom it in just a tad. And we need to hop in and investigate, because there's no point picking up a challenge cache, which is something like find all the counties in New Jersey on this trip. That's not going to work well for us. So this guy here might be one we could use. And it doesn't sound promising. Central Jersey Scavenger Hunt Challenge. Let's take a look at it. What do we have to do? Ammo canned. Yeah, you got to do a whole bunch of tasks to earn that one. So we're not going to want that one. So we'll continue down IFR, I follow roads, looking for one near our route somewhere. Scooch it on down. And what do we got here? Not much else in New Jersey proper, but there is an interesting thing if we were of a mind. There's a whole little power trail here of challenge caches, which if we had the time would be well worth going to do, but we're not going to do that here. What about this guy? What's he do? Fuzzy's Challenge. Well, might be good. Find and log 50 challenge caches and make a public bookmark list. Sounds like something we can do. Don't have to do it right now. We might already have made it. So we'll send it off and put it on our trip. And we had a comment that says, need 50 challenge caches. So we know what it's all about. Oh, caches. Cool. Dokie. Close that. And that's New Jersey. Suppose we want to look at next state down our run, just for fun here. It's going to be a little smidge of Delaware. We don't spend long in Delaware. It's a small state. Search. And we only got a handful. We'll map them. Let's see where our route goes, where our route takes us. Scooch it down some more. Ooh, that one's interesting. Right on our route. DE Travelers Challenge. That sounds interesting. 500 of your finds must have been outside your home state. We're heavy-duty cachers. I think we can make that or work on it. All we got to do is, doesn't require us to find anything in Delaware. We can just got to find caches outside of whatever our home state is. So we'll add that one. That looks promising. Worth a stop. 500 outside home state. Fingers on the right keys. Got it. Okie dokie. Right. So that's enough for now. We don't want to overload this trip. We do want to get a nice dinner when we get to DC and look around for a few more of those virtuals on the wall and things. But we do have a whole slug of travel bugs we'd like to dump off in a travel bug hotel, if we can find one along the way. So let's do another search. And we'll change the search to look for hotel in the title. Let's set all the cache types on. Let's look back. Again, it's going to find too much stuff. Let's look in Delaware, because somebody told me, little birdie told me that Delaware was a good place to look. Save a bit of time for something else we can do. So we only got 3. First State, Travel Bug, A Marvelous Letterbox, and the Patriotic TV Hotel. So we'll map them. Zoom them in. And we need to zoom in quite a bit more. So let's take a looky here. That little traditional is looking interesting because it's right on our route. And hey, look, come on. And it's looking even more interesting because it seems to be sort of at an interesting thing that might be a rest stop. We like those. So let's read about it Make sure it's going to work for us. Depending, some of the things are only available going north or going south. Whether you're heading north or south, come by and say hi. That works well. It works for us. So we've got a nice travel stop to take a break at. We've got a travel bug hotel to find there and leave our stuff off. Maybe pick up some travelers. Let's definitely put that one in. And put down TB Hotel, although the title kind of gives it away. Okie dokie.
And one of the things that people have noticed in the chat is that the pop-ups with the comments aren't showing up, and that's probably because our Reagan is sharing the screen, the window, not the whole screen. So
and
it's a pop-up. It's right.
Yeah.
It's not going to show up.
It's just a JavaScript pop-up, and you can type. It's only got one field to type something into.
Sure. Yeah. So it's going to be easy.
I hadn't reckoned that, but yeah, you're right. That wouldn't show.
Yeah, something that we didn't think about ahead of the show time.
And I don't know. Otherwise, you have to share the whole screen, which is a mess.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, interestingly enough, we're in this rest area. There might be something else there, since we've already going to stop. So why don't we look for nearby caches? I'm on the page with the TB Hotel. Let's look around the neighborhood. All nearby caches I've not found. So we start from the cache details page, trigger a new search from there, and map that location and see what we get. Oh, look at there. There's some other stuff in there. There's the I-95 rest stop, Delaware. That looks nice. We've already bit the cost of leaving the road and stopping. It's located at a service plaza, access from both directions. Oh, yes. We'll take you. Add that one. I won't comment it. We just sent it there directly. Interestingly enough, somebody's having an event there. I don't think that's going to work for us probably, but there is an event there.
Yeah, but that would be an interesting one to time out and make it too.
Yeah, it's on the. I looked earlier. It's not till a whole week after our trip.
Oh, okay.
But there's one at the other end of the rest stop, another one for travelers. So let's take a look at him, see what the story is. Left rest area, access from either direction. But we might be running short on time. But if for some reason we didn't find the other one, we'll send it there. But we're going to make it priority 3 because for me, when I plan my trips, priority 3 means it's a backup cache to me, which means if I can't find the primary, then I'll go for the backup. And I can set the route calculation to not include backup caches in my route time computations because I don't expect to be using them. So we'll set that from here. That's why you can use these priorities directly. When you put a cache in, you can convey a little extra information. So we've mined that rest stop quite handily. We've got some good opportunities there. And then we can get back on the road, visit the bathroom, do the usual sorts of things you do at rest stops. And we're ready to start on rolling on down the road. So you see how we nicely integrate the Cachetur integration with the cache details page, so we can add directly from there, or we can add directly from the map like we've been doing here. I'm not using the new map that the site has. This will work with it. I didn't use it because the new map is very JavaScript heavy and uses vector rendering, which is nice and fast if you've got a nice fast processor, which I don't. And add that to the lag of sharing the screen here, and I really didn't want to use it for this show. But if you've got a beefy machine, you can go there. But the old one works fine. So that's what we're doing here. Right. We need to go over to Cachetur and take a look at where we've been doing a bunch of stuff here. Let's go take a look at our trip. Opened up a tab. Here's our caches we've been adding. They're all above the end of the trip, which is what we want. There's the backup one. It's got a little green priority 3 written on it. If I look at the map's probably a muddle. There's all the places. The map's a muddle because the caches are out of order. 1, 4, 5, 7, 2. And that reflects the order we added them in. That's certainly not the order we want to visit them in. So the next thing we want to do is optimize the order. So we can go and sort and prioritize the waypoints. Here's all of them. What we'll do is select all of them by toggling mark on all of them at once. They're all marked. The important thing about optimization is the first one and the last one are kind of fixed points. Everything in between can be shuffled around, but the first and last stay. They're considered your beginning and your end. So here is the calculate and sort by optimal route button. You're limited to 80 waypoints with this, but yeah, that's generally okay. There we go. If we look at the map, you can see that they're numbered quite reasonably. I do need to save that. I have to commit that that's the sort and the optimization is what I want. You could rearrange it differently if you weren't quite satisfied with it. But we'll save it. Here's our trip. Let's go back to the map. Now they're numbered in the right order. 5, 6. There's 3 of them right here, 6, 7, 8 on top of each other in that rest stop. There's 9 at the other end of the rest stop. There's our webcam in Trenton. There's some other stuff down at the other end of the line in DC. And there's our stuff at the top of the trip. The last thing we want to do here is order a new route calculation. Optimizer puts the caches in the right order to visit. What it doesn't know is how long it's going to take to drive from each one to the next one. That's a separate process, which we will trigger by ordering a new route calculation. It won't change the route, but it will tell you how long each leg of it's going to take to drive, for example. So if we look back at the statistics while we're waiting for that to happen, we can now see all the counties we're going to visit. So if you're doing county caching, that could be of some interest to you. We can see our trip got a little bit longer. We were about 207 miles originally. So we're going a little off route here and there to pick up things that are opportunistic for us. Our drive time is estimated 6 hours with stops. If we don't stop, but who would do that? We could do it in 4.5 hours. There we go. It finished. There's a 2. So now if I reload the page, and we'll come back to this. The reason I did this at this point, though, was very specifically, there is also an integration with Project GC. And we want to take a look at that because the one thing we haven't looked at on this trip yet, that's not what I want, is looking for anything that might help me with my Jasmer, old caches. So the map compare tool in Project GC will let you set, among other many things, a range of dates. So from May of 2000 to the end of December of 2001, let's find all the caches in Delaware. I happened to set the state to Delaware earlier. Again, for a small state, Delaware has some interesting things that we will take advantage of. But you could go through state by state and look to see if there's any other old ones near your route. The other nice thing about Map Compare is it lets you take, if you're 2 people who are caching, you can look and find caches that neither one of you has found using that, for example, which is good when you're planning a trip, of course. Oh, we got a little something to look at here. There's our cache. There's our route line. So what do we got? That's the oldest one near our route, the Rittenhouse cache. Take a look at it. Okay, 12 favorites, August of 2001. Oh, I probably do need that one. So we'll add that to our trip. I won't do a comment because people can't see it anyway. I would say August of 2001 if I were writing a comment. And I don't think there was much else that was close by, but not Delaware anyway. You could search the other states, and I have, and this turns out to be the only one that's particularly close to this particular route. Now, I mentioned counties. We saw counties there. And if you're a county cacher type person, Project GC has a great tool for you to map counties. Let's say I want to map the counties in New Jersey against my route. That'll take a minute to run. If you've used this before, you know what you'll get. You'll get a map showing in red the counties you have not visited, and in green the counties that you have visited. And of course, you're interested in ones in red, and you're interested in finding caches in them, a primer and a backup typically, to use as you make your way. There we go. So there's the state of New Jersey with its counties mapped out. If we zoom it in a bit, first thing we can see is, okay, we've apparently got one of the counties sometime or another. But here's where this show me the caches that are already in my trip. If you click on that button up the top, there we go. We can see already, just at a glance, which counties are taken care of already. Without even asking which cache, whether there's any caches in those counties, we know we're going to get those if we get those caches. So this county here, well, we haven't got anything there. So we could say, I want to look in Mercer County, and this will bring a list of all the caches in Mercer County, and look along my route and pick one and add it to my trip from there. All the Project GC maps you can add to Cachetur from the map directly. This particular county thing is a premium feature. So if you're a county cacher, you're probably going to have it anyway, because it's the best game in town for what you're doing. So I'm not going to go deeper into Project GC at this point, just to say that this has a nice integration and it works very well. So we did, if we go back to our trip, remember we optimized the route and we calculated the route. We would like to know how long it's going to take us. So I click at the start in Washington Square Park and say, what time do we want to start? How about 8:30? That too early? We're cachers. We're probably up at 6.
Yeah, 8:30 seems like a little bit late start for me.
I know, me too, but we'll go with it. So I've set it, and I'll refresh the page so the cache information gets propagated, the ETAs get propagated down the page. See where we get. We get into Washington, D.C. just before 5 p.m. We got some slack. We could add more caches. Or we could go get what's on the mall. Actually, I've got a little problem here. That last one I added, it's in the wrong order. I didn't reset the dotted line, so I can drag it up above the end of my trip, save the sort. So they're not in a good order anymore. So I'm going to need to repeat what I just did, because Rittenhouse is way back there in Delaware somewhere. Toggle them, let's resort them. Get an optimal route. Otherwise, the ETA won't make any sense, because we're going down the road and turning around and coming back at some point, which is not what you want to do. Okay, let's see how that looks. Probably have to compute one more route calculation. But while we're here, we can look at some of these little icons, which are kind of interesting. This cache has child waypoints. This cache is 113 feet from the calculated route. Okay. This one's got a wrench, which means it may have trouble. So if we look at the details, we can see that it had a maintenance operation taking place some while back. So it's probably just fine for our needs. It's likely to be there. This has an unhappy face. Well, look at that. Yeah, unhappy happened quite a while back. So again, you can go through these fairly quickly and see if you really want to keep that on your route or not, based on looking at the status and looking at the what's considered to be problematic. Come on, finish up. This also gives you sunrise and sunset time, so you know we could get out there at 6:18 in the morning. The sun's going to be up. You who wanted an earlier start will be able to plan that. Similarly, there's a sunset time to let you know when. There we go. We're done now. If I refresh the page, this time we'll get proper ETAs for everything. Cost us a few minutes. So we're just before 5 o'clock. We're in DC. We can go do those on the mall. We can get a nice something to eat, have a bit of fun. So let's look at one other thing here. How are we doing on time? Yeah, a little bit left.
We're getting close, yeah.
Yep. In the last 2 shows, you've talked about the Travel Bug Hotels of America, and there's been some slight misinformation here and there, and there was a lament that there was no authoritative source showing where they all were. And so, not one to let things rest, T.W. Lair went and fixed this problem. So if I go to edit on our trip and say, add waypoints from lists, what does that do? That's a new thing. These are any lists of my own, because Cachetur has both lists and trips. And lists are not organized, they're just lists of caches. There are public lists, which include a bunch of other things, including the oldest cache in the state, and the Travel Bug Hotels of America, and Cache Across America, and other interesting things. And you can subscribe to those from here. Go to public lists, and you say, I want to subscribe to the ones, and they show up in your list after you've done that. So we're interested in seeing if there's any TBHOA hotels along our route. So we will lay that set of caches in that list on top of our route. But this is not the assistant here. This is directly in Cachetur itself that we're doing this. So the assistant, wrong direction. Let's go the other way. There you go. That's all the ones in the US. As you can see, there are a lot. Always find a place to put your trackable, probably. Come on. Let's see. Scooch it over some more. It's being obstinate. There we go. Let's try that. All right. See if we can zoom it into where our route is. This screen is lacking the zoom to route. I'm going to suggest to Tom Frey that he adds that. We're getting close. I can see the tail end of our route up there. There we go. So there's a nice looking one there. Libraries, Three Wise Men, the TV Vault. Sounds attractive. If we pop back here, we'll actually see an old friend. Remember, we put a cache called XL in that was right next to the virtual. So we've already, it turns out, accidentally added a TBHOA cache to our list because it had very high favorites, and we didn't know why it had high favorites at that point. So with this, you can easily find those TB Hotels of America where your travel bugs can luxuriate and rest and comfort using this kind of tool and add them to your trip. I'm not going to add them anymore at this point. I think we've made our end-to-end trip build. One of the things of note is that we've done it by cherry picking and being able to go a fair distance off our route. If we saw something that interested us, we can filter the kinds of things we look at rather than taking a very large pocket query and pawing through that looking for something interesting and miss something just because it was 6 miles away and not 5 miles away. And we built our trip. We've optimized it. The last thing we want to do is we're going to actually want to execute this trip at some point. It's no fun. So Cachetur has a app, the Cachetur companion app that runs on iOS, runs on Android. This is a simulator of that app, but we'll be able to do the very same thing you can do in the app. Log in. Let's put in. All right. Let's see if we can get logged in. Download trips. There's our trip. And there it is. You can see all of the caches that are in our trip. And what's new is this has been substantially expanded. If I click on the starting point, you can now set your arrival time at the cache, the time you departed from the cache. You can see the difficulty terrain, favorites, hints, coordinates, lots of stuff that people have been asking for. And when I say we departed, because this is in the future, you are now 10 hours and 41 minutes ahead of schedule, which is very comfortable. We get to the next one, of course, and we get, when we arrive there, we can tick that, or when we forget, we can click departed. And it'll keep you in track whether you're going to get to DC on time or whether you've got a little bit of slack in your schedule and you can afford to go after something extra. It makes the actual execution as easy as the planning. So I'm going to drop back out of here unless there's something else you want me to do here and start looking at people again.
Yeah, no, I think that's been a great look at it and lots of stuff that I'm going to have to play with and figure out myself, and probably come back to the show and play this a few times over to make sure that I didn't miss something and mess something up.
Okay, here we are. We're back. Hello.
Hello again.
So, are there any other questions in the chat that people wanted to talk about?
No, we've had a few comments. A lot of people saying that they're going to have to come back and watch this again. But Mr. Levine in the chat once again said that the XL cache is a large industrial gem chained to a building and it's filled with swag.
Ooh.
It's where he first saw the FTF magazine. So that's pretty cool.
It is. Things you find. Cool. So I hope people are going to go out there and start doing some trip planning and get out there, especially if you're going to GeoWizstock or something like that. A lot of people drive a lot of hours to get there, and they want to do something along the way that's more than just driving. And, so it's a good chance to test out some of these tools.
Absolutely. And you got to play with this long ahead of time so that you know what you're doing when it comes time and don't have issues.
Yeah, I use this for planning long trips, but I also use it for planning just little ad hoc day trips. It turns out that it's just as good for that.
Yeah, and that's where I like to plan or do the test routing with this, is go and do some of those. Hey, I'm going to run this route even though I know exactly what I'm doing, so I can learn how to make the tool work and match with what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the overhead once you start playing with it is not high at all to put together a quick little trip. And
Excellent.
Because you've already stored your home location, so you've got a start location, you have an end location, so all I got to do is fill in the stuff in the middle.
Exactly. And then figure out the best way to make that work for you in the middle there.
Typically, you have some sort of goals when you're going out. I know if recently I've been doing some of the 360-degree challenge caches, and so I go out and pick the beams I need, and they're ideal for Cachetur because they're out along the 360-degree radius from the start point, which means they're not all on the same road. In fact, they're rarely on the same road. And so letting the route get optimized once I've chosen some beams to do today is very useful.
Yeah, that's not something that's easy to do.
not without a help.
Right. Well, thanks again so much for all of this excellent material, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of people asking questions in the future. Is there someplace that you'd suggest they go aside from this show for more help?
We have, if you're using Cachetur, there's a question mark in the icon up there, which has all of our help resources in it. We also have. We work with people on the Facebook group. We work with people on Slack if you want to come and find us there. We have a community of ambassadors who try to get out and do training classes whenever we can. If you're in one of our areas, you should keep an eye out for those things. We'll do the same kind of thing we did today, but we try to do it as a workshop. So people are encouraged to bring their laptops and do it themselves under tutelage of an instructor. And there's nothing better than that to get it down pat.
And when you're at that next mega or giga event, hopefully there's one of those classes that you can join in live.
Well, I have to see. Those are busy times.
They are.
And particularly the gigas. They don't have a lot of 2-hour workshop size slots around.
No, this is true. Well, thanks again. Go ahead.
Yep. No, they'll give you 15 minutes maybe.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, and we'll certainly look forward to having you and hopefully Plato Attic back on the show to talk more about the excellent tool.
All righty. Well, it keeps getting enhanced and changed, and so there's usually something new to talk about. And if there's some other spin people want on it, then we should talk that. get that done.
And check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Offenauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2019 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.